Alrighty, let's go ahead and get started here. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Whether you're joining us live or on demand, we want to welcome you to our Mobile App Academy once again, where we show you how to build and configure mobile apps live on the Now platform. My name, as always, is Charlie Steiner, and I work in product marketing here at ServiceNow. And today we'll be going through getting started with customizing the field service mobile app, a new topic for us and something we're very excited to share with you. If you're just joining us live for the first time, this is a live building series that focuses on managing and building out mobile apps in real time. We'll have product experts on hand to provide guidance, best practices, and answer any of your questions posted in the Q&A window. We host these sessions every 2 weeks here on Zoom at 10 a.m. Pacific, and our recordings are posted on YouTube shortly after. So those links to the community and to our YouTube page will be posted in the chat shortly for your reference. Either right now or after this session. So we encourage you to check both of those out. But what's really important to us here at Mobile App Academy is when we get insight from you. So again, please post any of your questions, your takeaways, what you've been working on in the chat or in the community. We love getting in touch with you guys, learning what's new, learning what's going on in your world as well, because we really base our session topics around what we hear from you and what you want to learn more about. And today, I'd love to introduce a special guest who will be taking us through customizing the field service mobile app. Ian Kinnear is a principal technical consultant on the customer outcomes team here at ServiceNow. And as always, we have Fu Ho and David Ha, who will be moderating the chat and answering all of your questions. So let me go ahead and pass it over to Ian, and Ian can introduce himself and get us started with today's topic. Ian?
All right. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, we hear you great.
Okay. Just a couple slides to start us off. Hey everyone, my name's Ian Kinnear. I'm a technical consultant based out of Ottawa, Ontario, Canada. I've been with ServiceNow for almost 7 years now. And what I would like to show you today are some simple tips and tricks to maintain the user experience while configuring the mobile app. What I found in my role implementing requirements for various organizations is that it's kind of easy to fall into a trap where even, where you might have the best intentions, that you might implement some changes that could lead to usability issues. So that's what I want to cover today, some tips and tricks for maintaining a great user experience in the mobile app. So just real quick, my agenda, really simple, high level. We're going to implement a requirement to ensure time is recorded prior to closing a task. We're going to review the impact to the user experience having done that. And we are going to review and implement tips and tricks to keep that user experience level high. So that's it for the slides. Let's move this out of the way. So what I'd like to do first is just give a brief tour of the field service management application within Mobile Agent. It's not going to be, terribly in-depth, just real quick, just to give us a flavor. So if you look at my screen, am I still sharing?
Yep, we can see your screen, just perfect.
All right. You can see the mobile app on the left-hand side and the my browser on the right?
Yep.
Okay, great. So what you'll see is, so the app is split into sections using a launcher. So looking at the bottom of the mobile screen here, you can see my work, your inventory, articles in the knowledge base, notifications, and more. Looking at my work, this is where you're going to see, your open tasks assigned to you. So I can swipe through, see what tasks are assigned to me. I can see all. Can you still hear me okay?
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, just making sure because my audio just tuned down massively. All right, so I've got my list of tasks here. I can tap into a task to view it. I can take actions regarding that task. I can look at information. So these are the fields that are available on that task form in the details tab. I can look at my activity. From here, I can see my journal, basically take a look at what's happened within the activity stream, what's happened within that task. If I need to, I can even, maybe take a photo or a video, attach that to the task, and it's going to show up in the journal. And just tapping back through, so in addition to my own tasks, I can look at my group tasks. I can see my schedule on a calendar, tap through my tasks that way, or if I want to, I can look at a task map and see what my tasks are in the context of the location. I can tap on, say, a task icon here, swipe through, see what tasks are there. I can also slide through at the bottom, so I can swipe up here and swipe over to another task, see where that task is located as well. So continuing on, looking at my inventory at the bottom of the screen. So from here, I can look at any part requirements that I might have created, my inventory, available parts, and so on. I can also look up an asset by scanning. So here's a QR code, scanning an asset tag. I'm going to search for that, find that asset. Maybe I need to create a work order from here, or perhaps see a list of tasks, any work orders that have completed regarding that particular asset, or maybe that are upcoming. From the articles, so here's where I get to look into my knowledge base. I can also do that contextually from within a task, passing in the short description, or I can tap and search for a particular article. I can access my articles by category, by popularity, by use. Notifications here is where I'm going to see any push notifications that I might have received. I don't have any right at the moment. And then more will allow me to access additional settings, and as well as my team. So I can see that I'm signed in here as a technician in NorCal Technicians Group. I can see my manager, tap into that team, see who my manager is. Hopefully I know. See my team members, maybe tap into one. Maybe I need to call that person or give them or send them a message. I can do that right out of here, or see where they are right now. I can also, from within the settings application, if I tap back, I can access my offline mode. So if I find myself in an area with no coverage, and I need to obviously continue my work, I can access functionality within the mobile app using my downloaded cache. And to do that, I'm just going to toggle on offline mode right here. So I'll update my cache and go offline. So I can see my downloads complete. I'm now in offline mode. And maybe within a task, I might want to, let's take a task that's in progress here. Maybe I want to remove a part, swipe over, remove that part. And I can see that this particular action is queued up to be committed later on. And in order to do that, once I'm finished with my offline activity, maybe I'm back in cell phone coverage, I can toggle that off and resync. So that's just a real quick overview tour of the mobile app. What I want to do is get into my use case here. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to look at a scenario where perhaps you need to have your technicians record their time before they're going to close a task. So in order to do that, well, let's take a look first. Let's open up a task here. So I can see right now I haven't made any changes. I can tap close complete. I could close out that task right now. But what if I wanted to ask the user to tap up to my overflow and record their time always before they complete that task. And I want to prevent them from closing that task until this action is taken. So that's what we're going to walk through. So thinking about this, the first thing we're going to need to do is build something that in the back end can tell us if the user has recorded time or not. So let's look at in Studio. So I'm looking at my browser on the right-hand side of the screen here. And what we can do first is look for our close complete. Function. And we can see that that close complete function uses an action item in the backend to process that button press, that close complete button press, and that's called WOT close complete. So let's look for that as well and get it open. Here it is up here. So let's take a look at this script here, what it's doing. So what it's going to do is as soon as I tap that close complete, it's going to do a lookup and get the particular task that we're wanting to close. And then it's going to do a basic check here. It's going to say, I want to make sure it's open and I want to make sure it's valid to close this. And I'm also going to take a look. So sorry here, live issue. I can see in this version, I've already made the change. So let's pretend that, go ahead and pretend that I haven't done that. So what all it's going to do here is ask us, so to provide details for that closure note if you haven't, if you tried to submit it without having any information. So that's just going back to the mobile app over here. You can see that we've got a mandatory closure note. You can also see that I've added a couple questions, basically just simulating that, you know, what's likely to happen when you're configuring is you're going to have to ask your users probably something else other than the note. So just to simulate that, I want to fill out this and that and ask the customer this, and maybe do have to fill out a whole bunch of information before I close that. All right, so what we're gonna want to do next is we're going to want to create something that's going to help us to determine if that time card has been submitted or not. So for that, what we're going to do is we're going to hop back out of Studio for a second. And whenever we do this kind of functionality, it's always a good idea to build it out into a reusable function in a script include. So let's do that. So I'm going to access my script includes over here. And you can see that I've already created here a script include called mobile util. So let's open it up and take a look at the code here. This is just made very simply. We got a function called check record time, and it's going to check to see if a time card is associated to a task. And how it's going to do that, it's just going to look up that it's going to take in a task by sysid. It's going to look that task up, check for a record in the time work table, and if it finds one, it's going to return true. And if it doesn't find one, it's going to return false. So now that we've got this, what we're going to do is we're going to go back and we're going to access in Studio, and we're going to add in that additional check right here. So in order to access our script include, it would just basically be, you know, creating a variable, and, you know, we will invoke this particular script include, And then once we've done that, all we need to do is add an if statement. And we can call this particular function that we've created called check record time. And we're going to pass in the task. So it's going to be check record time. And then we're going to bring in that sysid. And then if we have, if we do not get true, in other words, we haven't gotten a time record back in that, we're going to add in a message. So let me we'll add in a quick message here. So all we're going to say is we're going to have an error message, and we're going to say, just please record your time before closing this task. So let's go ahead and save that. And now let's take a look at how that looks within the mobile app. So just in case, I am going to close and reopen here and access the same task. And I can double check just to make sure over here in my related list, I don't have any time worked on this task. But let's look at what's going to happen to the user if this is implemented. So I'm going to close complete. Maybe I'm going to fill out this information and fill out that information. And here's a bunch of information I just asked the customer. And here's all the steps I took to resolve this. So you can see what I'm getting at here. As a technician, I've now filled out a whole bunch of information, and I now go to submit it. And unfortunately, missed one thing here. So you can see right here what I missed. I want to return and not continue on and close the task. So I posted my message and I let the task get closed. That's okay. That's why it's live. So let's do it again with another task. So here's another task I can accept and start work. And again, close complete. This time I won't be so creative with my questions, with my answers rather. If I submit this, I get a message, please record your time before closing the task. So this is what I wanted to cover in this webinar is that's not the greatest work experience, experience from a user perspective, because now what do I have to do? I have to cancel out after I've already recorded all this information. Then I have to go back. Then I have to record my time and put in my time worked and any comments and submit that. And now I can do this. So not a great user experience we've created so far. We maybe had the best intention. We want to make sure that people record their time. So what can we do to maybe improve that a little bit? So the first technique that I want to show is to hide, so basically control the visibility of, let's tap start work again so I can show you. So what I'm talking about here is, let's look at controlling the visibility of this close complete button and not allow them to even see that until they've recorded time. So let's go back to Mobile Studio on the right-hand side of the screen, and we're going to look at our close complete action again. And if I scroll down here, you can see that there's a condition built here. So that condition is looking at You know, is it open? Are we the current user? And so on and so forth. So why not, since we already have built a function within a script include to be able to do that, to be able to check whether or not that time has been recorded or not, how about we take that same logic, right, that we implemented, sorry, back over here, and right here, right? So new script include, and call that check record time function. So how that would look if I write it out, let's click back over here to my action. So what I pasted in right here is just the exact same thing, just written out. So new script include check record time, passing in the sysid, and whatever else was there before. So let's save that. And let's look to see if we have a better user experience or not. So looking back at the mobile app, just because I've made a change to a function, I'm going to restart that. And I'm going to open up my task. And you can see that maybe we've improved it a little, but it's still not perfect. And the reason why it's still not perfect is, so right away you can see we don't have any more close complete here. And we don't have it using our overflow menu here at the top. We do have our record time, but I might not necessarily know as a technician that that's what I need to do. But let's pretend that I did in this task. And so I'll put in the work date, I'll put in my time worked and submit. And now you can see magically my close complete button is back. So as I was saying, that's a little better, but it's still not perfect because the user doesn't necessarily know that they need to do that close complete function. If the button is missing, they could be spending their time trying to find the button. Why can't I close complete? So this is where I get to kind of the trick part of what I wanted to show. So what we can do is let's create another close complete button. But this close complete button, instead of showing out all these questions and leading the technician down a path to fill that out and then be annoyed, let's just give them a message immediately that they haven't recorded their time yet. So let's look at how to do that. So what we're going to do is create a new mobile function to do that. And what I'd like to do is create the action item first. So that's what's going to process my button. So what I'll do is I'll just create new. And then why don't we call this close complete record time reminder. And of course, you'll put a good description there. And then this is going to be on our work order task table. And we're going to use the current record as a condition, but let's change this to a script like our other close complete uses. And what we can do here is, again, just it could be as simple as just saying gs.add error message, and then something like unable to close task, please record your time first. That's all it's going to do. So let's submit that, and then we're going to create the button next over here. I'm going to click on Create New. And let's call this Close Complete, Record Time Reminder, so we know what it is. And the action item it's going to use, big surprise, is going to be the action item that we just created. And what we're going to want to do is, okay, we're going to give it a table that's going to appear on, and a condition. So let's use a script for our condition. And then again, rather than typing, well, I can show you an easy way to get what our condition should be. So that would be to look at our other close complete, grab this, paste this in here. However, we are going to add in here a not. So if we have not recorded time and all the rest of those conditions are true, then we're going to show our new close complete record time reminder button. So let's submit this. And now cross our fingers, close the app and reopen it just to make sure we have all the latest. And I will take a task here, accept that task, and start work. And we do not yet have our button as we were expecting. So that's interesting. So let's see what we've done wrong here. So we've got okay. So David and Fu are probably laughing at me here. So in order for a button to appear on a screen, we need to add an instance of that button to the screen. So it doesn't matter that I've created, it's not going to appear until I open up my screen, which is, in this case, my tasks. So here's where we're going to configure our screen in the mobile app. So basically what we're seeing over here, we've got our list set up and our form set up, and we want this button to appear on the form, so I'm going to click there. We want that button also to appear in the body, so I'm going to click on body, and I'm going to head down to the footer where use part is appearing here, and you can see that there's our existing close complete function, footer function here. So what we're going to want to do, so if you run into this, maximum of 3 footer functions are supported, that's fine. What it's trying to prevent here is there's only space for 3 buttons. However, if you're using conditions like we are to show or hide those, we can potentially have the need to add more. As long as we make sure that only 3 ever appear here, that's fine. So what we're going to do is head over to our function. Sorry, we're going to head over to the screen, which is my tasks. And we're going to have a, so we're going to find our close complete function. This is, I've clicked into the list view. So let's, here. So actually, easier way to do it would be to find the function instance. So what we can do is we can open this, and I'll open this in another window to get the function instances. And then I'm going to open close complete. All right, so here's my close complete function instance that's going to appear on the it's going to appear on the task screen, actually on the details tab of it right here. And it's going to be a primary color, and it's going to appear on the footer. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to do a insert and stay. So this is going to be if my record time not completed, and our function is going to be close complete record time reminder, and the label can be close complete. That's fine. And I'll just give it an order and insert and stay. And then just to confirm that that shows up in Studio, let's open Studio back up. Select our field service mobile scope. And then we're going to go back into my tasks, the form, body, scroll down to the footer. Now we can see we've got two close completes. We've got our original one and our new one that we created. All right, so now let's go back to the app and see if things have improved. So here's our task. And now, thankfully, we've got our close complete button here. So if you recall, on this particular task, we haven't entered any time worked yet. So our technician might think, okay, I've done my work, I need to go ahead and close my task. So I better close complete. So if I tap that, I see this message now appearing telling me to close a task. So just a little bit of a better user experience than having them enter in a whole bunch of information and not be able to move any further. So if I was to then tap up and record my time, I'll enter the date and the time that I worked and submit this. From the user perspective, they still see close complete, everything is fine. However, if I tap it now I see my close complete that I want them to see when it's actually time to close that task. So I'm going to take a pause here and just reach out to you, David, Fu, and Charlie, see if there's any questions.
Yeah, we had a couple questions earlier, and I love how you made a couple mistakes earlier, and there's no laugh side at all again. I think the best part of Mobile App Academy is where we figure out where our mistakes are and kind of teach everyone and kind of share those learnings on how we troubleshoot. So that's the greatest part of our Mobile App Academies. But we did have a couple questions earlier. One asked, and I'm assuming that they're a bit more new to mobile, and they asked, when you pulled up your function, how do I change like fields that the end user could change or edit on that function? So it would be like a very simple declarative action, and you change the parameters around. So
yeah, sure. So let's look at that close complete function where we added in the fill out this and that and so on. So I'll scroll down to my functions and find close complete here. And if I scroll down to the bottom and look at the related list here, I can see that there are 4 UI parameters. UI parameters are the fields that are, if I just tap close complete again, that are going to show up, and the user is going to have to fill in. These can be either mandatory or not, or different types of fields. It might be a choice list, or it might be a string. It might be a true false slider, or a number, just based on what I need. And so here you can see that out of the box, there's a closure note that was there. And I just went ahead and added really quick, 3 additional questions here. Now, once you add a UI parameter, it's not just going to show up right away. So what we need to do is figure out what we want to do with that. So at this point, we're just sort of collecting information. So probably we want to, store this information somewhere because we're asking them to fill it out. So that's where we're going to go back and look up again on our action item that's supporting this function and open that up. And so here's where we could use those. So if I look at the here, this example. So if I take the input.wb WOT close complete, what I've done here is tied to that action item, there are item parameters. So we need to make a connection from the form that appears to the actual functionality on the back end that's going to take that and do something with it, write it to the task table, for example. So what I would do is I would create that item parameter, and then within my action item, I can then use that. Like, it could be just as simple as if this was an update, I won't save this, but it could be as simple as taking a value like the close note and then pulling in that value. So here's a way to do it without scripting. We just had a script because we've implemented some additional funky logic here with error messages and so on. But that's basically what you would do. You would have your UI parameter, you would have your item parameter on the action item, and then the last thing you would need to do is, if you notice this action parameters mapping screen, this is where you would map that UI parameter that was submitted to the item parameter in the back end. So once you do those 3 things, you can add additional fields to this form.
Great. I think that answered that customer's question quite clearly. We have another question, and it's someone who's not familiar with how you're able to put more than 3 footers on your device. So on Studio, it shows 7 footers, although you are maxed out to 3. So you can use Platform UI to do that. So how did you set the conditions so that only 3 would show up, and how do you make those show up, and not the other 4?
Well, so each of these functions has a condition built onto it. So in this case, this was the original close complete where we added an additional condition in here to only show it if the user has actually completed their time. So basically you're going to be looking and building these conditions so that you can show or hide those buttons as you need to. And the biggest value, the most frequent use field for doing that is obviously going to be the state, right? So on if I look back at the mobile screen here and tap to my work, so you can see that for a work order task that's just assigned here, it's not yet work in progress. I've got my accept and reject here. This is the same task screen, and you can see I've got accept and reject over here. So it's all in the conditions and, by extension, the data on the task, namely the state in this case, to make sure that I'm showing that button, in the right time for the user, depending on that state. And I'm limiting myself here to 3. What I recommend is for these functions that are going to appear on the main task, try to keep those to any action that will basically drive the state flow for this particular task. So, what's the next thing I need to do to work this task? Well, I need to decide if I'm going to accept or reject it. And then once I do that, I need to either start my travel, or if I'm already there, I can just start work right away. I wouldn't want to, ask the user to close complete at this point when they haven't even started work yet on it. It's still in a state of accepted. So that's where you're going to go on to kind of drive that through the conditions. Hopefully that makes sense.
Right, that's a really good point. And to kind of add to that, Viraj, you asked, if I had more than 3 functions, can I increase the count on my footer? And just as Ian was saying, you only want to put the buttons that would make most sense to kind of drive that workflow, right? If you have further actions that you want to do on this record, I would suggest putting them in the top menu, which Ian's clicking on now, where you can see all these other actions that that the end user can do, but it might not be relevant at this stage or at this current. Yeah.
And if I head back to my task in progress here, you can see I've got additional functions I can do from the overflow menu. These are things that I aren't necessarily linked to the state, like maybe editing, changing a couple fields on this particular task, removing. I might not need to remove a part. So that's why I prefer to have that up here in the overflow menu as opposed to down here in the main part of the form.
We have another question from SwapNil, and this person is asking, do UI actions work on the mobile apps as they work on the Snow platform? I'm not sure if UI actions are referencing the classic app or old legacy app, or if it's just actions on the platform in general. So any actions that you want for your end users to have access to, you do have to configure it, whether specifically for mobile, right? So any actions that you might already have on the platform needs to be also done again, either using Mobile Studio or using the platform UI to build it for mobile. So really, all your end users, they don't have access to any actions until you build it for them and associate it to your mobile client. And I will send a link to a training course that's an introduction to the mobile apps and how you can get started using Mobile Studio. I think that would be very helpful to really understand how to get started with your mobile.
Yeah, and the good news there too is you do get, all this functionality coming out of the base system. So, a lot of thought obviously went into, creating all of the functions that you need as a technician from within the mobile app, mimicking or, and in some cases enhancing what you can do in the platform UI as well. So, what we've looked at today are just some examples where I might need to go in and add something else. So yeah, short answer is yes, but you need to build it, just build it in a different way using functions within the mobile app.
Right. So we're gonna spend the next 5-10 minutes to answer any other questions that come in. Feel free to continue asking us questions, and we will, if we need further clarification, we'll also unmute your mic as well. So we have another question from SwapNil. Do the platform's UI policies also work on the mobile apps? So if you have any existing UI policies that currently that you have on the platform, mobile uses its own UI policy table. So Ian, if you scroll down a little bit more, there is a table for UI styles, and this is where you would create UI style or UI policies. Sorry, and your platform's UI policies won't automatically migrate to mobile. You'll have to actually create them again. And this will allow you to create, read, write, or making fields mandatory. Whether the fields are visible or whether it's mandatory, you can configure it here with Mobile Studio. And I can send a product doc link for more information about it too. Any other questions? I think we're
the other thing, David, if there's nothing else that I could potentially show is this
Yes.
communication to an external widget.
Let's actually show that. So we have an extra 10 minutes. Let's actually build one additional flow while we still have time.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I can just like take us through it step by step, because I've already got a case, you know, an example of it built, but it's easy enough to replicate. Just where this use case is coming in is if I wanted to jump out and show something outside of the mobile framework, but I want to pass some information in there. So the example that I had was, you know, maybe I've got some special instructions that are tied to a particular company. So it, you know, it's going to be dynamic depending on whatever company is tied to this work order task, and I want to have those instructions be, you know, a little more descriptive and friendly, like you know, maybe have some images and or additional information that I would want to use HTML for to display that. And so what I've done to handle this situation in the past is actually just create a portal widget and create a navigation from within the mobile studio to link pass in what I need to pass so that I can display the appropriate data. So in this case, the special instructions that correspond to this company. So just looking at that a little more in a little more detail. Let's say I had a field on the company table where I was going to have some notes stored that should pertain to this particular customer. And I want it only to appear for the user when the company is Cyberdyne. Obviously, it's tied to this particular company. So if I tap in the mobile app, you can see I've created a field navigation here where I'm still, you know, from the user's perspective, I'm within the mobile app, but actually we're breaking out to an HTML page that's being rendered from the portal. So that's how it looks in the mobile app. And then if I show you over here, so if I look at the widget that I created, if you're familiar with portal widgets, this is going to be real simple for you to understand. But essentially here, so let's open it in our editor, widget editor. So now I'm not in mobile. I'm not doing anything from a mobile framework perspective at all. I'm in a portal page. So I created a portal to support these widgets that I've set up here, and I've created a new widget called special instructions. And you can see that in my server script, all I've done is I've pulled in a parameter from that URI, from the URL with the URI that we've navigated to. And so I'm looking for that to be passed in, for the company SysID to be passed in using that mechanism. And if it is, then I'm just going to do a glide record on the core company, pull that up, and then store in the variable what those notes are. And then in my HTML side of my widget, all I'm going to do is just display them. Pretty simple, using a bind HTML. So the portal code is pretty straightforward. And then in Studio, this is actually going to be a specific kind of function we would use called a smart button. So you can see I've created one here called view special instructions, and it's going to be of type URL. And then I just give it a name, a label rather, and then I pass in this URI. And the secret sauce to this is just to leverage data that's on our table, the task table in this case, and pass in that SysID using the URI. And it's really as simple as that. Other than, let's not make the same mistake I made earlier. On the task table, or sorry, in the task applet, you can see that Again, just scrolling to the top for a sec, we got our list and form, and then on the body, we have our field functions. So these are functions that are going to appear like this location, where I can open up Google Maps or Apple Maps, whichever from there. Well, we're going to use that same field function, but on, so identify that on the special instructions field, we're going to tie in our view special instructions smart button that we just created. So once we've done that, this special instructions field will show up as a link, and I can tap into it. Now, you might be asking, well, what is this field? How did you make this view special instructions text? Is it a field? What is it? So this is just kind of another trick that I've used a few times in the past. I could easily have used the company field here and put it on our field function on the company, and then if you tap it, it would open the special instructions. But if I wanted to show the user a more helpful message like view special instructions, this is gonna possibly not blow you away, but all I did here is I created a new field, which I called special instructions. Let's look at our dictionary. And I created a new field on the task record, which is called special instructions, and it has a default value of view special instructions, and it's read only. So it's basically just kind of a little trick to have a field here available that I can display on my task form and then apply the function to. Any questions about any of that?
No questions so far on that, but that's a really cool trick. I'm definitely gonna showcase that a bit more. Even I wasn't aware. So really great demo. I'm actually going to unmute Viraj. He had a question earlier about footer functions that maybe you can help clarify for us. And we'll just have a chat. So I'm trying to unmute you now while I talk. Okay, Viraj, if you unmute your mic, you should be able to ask us the question directly now.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah,
yes.
we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, thank you, Ian, thank you, David. So here on my task applets, you can see there is a footer functions, and where you added a close complete footer function newly. So you added it from not from Studio, you added from the platform view, because the plus sign on your right hand side on the top where it's label function type button emphasis, that is not enabled. So can we enable it? Is there some kind of property that we can increase the count in the system so that it can be we can use it directly from here instead of going to the platform view?
I see. So I think what happened here was, I think that this plus button that you're seeing, this grayed out plus button, it's actually hard coded it for it to stop working after you have 3 functions. So if Ian were to delete, if he only had 2 actions for accept and reject, you would actually see that plus button show up again. But because he maxed out his this on Studio only allows you to add a maximum of 3. So that's why he has to go into Platform UI to add additional footer functions. And then that's where you apply your conditional access, where if you have more than 3, the only ones that will show up will be based on the ones that fulfill those conditions.
So what you can do really easy is if you tap, or so if you click over to your functions, and then it doesn't even really matter which one you open. And then what I do sometimes is I will, sorry, it does matter which one you open. Sorry, if I'm on the wrong page. I want to go to my applets, take that back, and under mobile, and then find the my tasks like I did before. And then so I can just right click here on this related list and open new window. and then open it up. And then that way I can see the table that it's located in. And if you don't know, you can just grab this table. You only need to do this once. So I can bring up the list of function instances in my platform UI, and then I can just drag it over. So I have my function instances here. You can see with my poor memory, I had already actually done that, but I forgot. So here's my button instances. And then, if I wanted to, I could even edit this to make it more user-friendly. Sorry, it's this one. But you get the idea.
Yeah, got it. Thanks, Ian.
I also wanted to say that, and I would recommend to ask this question as well in community, because I have recently been on a Paris instance for a customer, and I am almost certain, I just don't want to say it for official, that it actually was changed, so you can add more.
I'm not sure, but it's possible that, that's good to know though. So I guess in Paris, it's no longer hard-coded to only have 3. So
I believe so, but we can double check that, and maybe ask the question on community. Somebody on a Paris instance can easily tell you, or like I said, even without that, it's pretty easy to just find that list, then navigate to your list, and then you can always copy and insert and stay on a new one.
Right, and with every release, we are trying to make the developing experience much easier. So in Paris, we try to make some of the things that you can only configure in Platform UI, you'll find sometimes be migrated back into Mobile Studio. So things get better over time and slowly. If there are any things that that's preventing you from having a good experience, or you have any suggestions, please open up ideas on our idea portal, which you can find on our mobile community site as well. So anything that you open up as an idea, it goes straight to our internal product team's backlog, and we have kind of a further discussion on it, and helps us prioritize. So it's very helpful for us to share feedback there. And with that, I think we are at the top of our hour. Let me see if there's any last minute questions that we can answer. Looks like we're able to answer a majority of them. We do have a question from Tony about this Mobile App Academy and how frequent we have them. So this is a bi-weekly live session that we have every Tuesday morning at 10 a.m. Pacific time. So we will have another Mobile App Academy 2 weeks from today. So feel free to keep checking out the mobile community site to get the latest updates.
Hopefully David and team will have me back, because it was fun. So some other time, maybe you'll hear from me again.
And Ian, you're amazing. So really appreciate this session, and hopefully everyone else found it very helpful too.
Thank you.
With that, everyone, thank you for joining us today. I hope you've all found this session informative and helpful. If you have any further questions, feel free to keep posting on our community site, where we can explore further configurations on our future sessions. Make sure to keep following us on our mobile community site, and I hope to see you at our next Mobile Academy. Thank you, everyone.